Hey, today I have a really great and fun interview. I know it's going to be a great time. I always have a good time talking to a fellow trader. You've seen me on here with my wife, you've seen me here with my son. And, I come on here every day to do recaps, and I'll also show you live trading. Today, I'm going to be talking to a guy that's been in the markets for a long period of time. And he's recently, in the last year and a half, picked up more on the intraday side of day trading. He's somebody that I've known for several years. He's a good guy. He's all the way down in the great state of Florida. And I'm welcoming Zach Ackerman.
Hey
Zach, how
man,
you doing? Good to see you,
doing
brother.
well. Yeah, thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So let's just let's just go back and forth here. Let's just kind of talk a little bit about your trading journey. What was the genesis for you that started you out in the markets? Like, what was your first kernel of interest in trading?
In trading or in the markets?
Let's go in the markets, because I think
Okay.
that was sort of what set you off at the beginning,
Yeah,
right? You kind of were in the markets first, and then you got into trading. So let's start there. Let's start with the markets.
yeah, definitely. So I think, it was this Finance 1000 class in college that I took. I was kind of in the business area thinking, oh, that'll be a good degree. And I took this Finance 1000 class, and they were talking about real estate and the stock market. And that definitely piqued my interest because it was like a competitive environment. And being a sports player growing up and everything, like I like the idea of being competitive, making money, and it's something that's really hard and a challenge. And so that was probably the first thing that interests me in the markets. And I ended up changing my degree to be, finance with a big focus on kind of portfolio management and just asset managers in general. And got a job doing that kind of out of college. And so was always from that point just interested in the market and stocks, and that was kind of where it started.
Yeah. No, that's really cool. There always is some kind of like episode or something. It's weird because for me, I remember my grandpa sitting down with with the newspaper, and he was heavily invested in the company that he worked for over 50 years. And he would every day, that's how he would check to see how the market was doing, which is so crazy to me now, because now we're like, minute by minute, second by second, looking at all of the charts. But for him, every single day was checking the stock market for what it did yesterday, and and so that really kind of made me go, so you're invested in this company and you're making money off of it. He's making dividends. And he's like, so I'm like 5-6 years old going, that's pretty cool. For me, it took many, many more years for me to actually get in the markets. But that for me was my genesis, which is cool. And it does start somewhere. There's some episodic kind of event or just something that just makes you go, this is interesting. So fast forward then to me and talk a little bit about actual trading and how that journey sort of commenced for you.
Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, I definitely started out with kind of trying to do some investing, messing around with trying to make money in, penny stocks or find the next, company that's going to go to 1 million. And I think there was a lot of trial and error, just learning about the markets and how things move and why things are, could be good investments, bad investments, all that. And so probably from a day trading standpoint, probably in 2022, I met up with a group of guys who were into the markets. And for me, that was enough, and they were telling me, oh, yeah, we do intraday trading. And a lot of them were trading penny stocks. A lot of them were trading options, and they all had this Discord. And so I joined that group, and I had some free time. And so I just started jumping on there. And, it was the wild, wild west, I'd say. There were definitely some guys in there who were, very profitable and knew what they were doing. They were a lot older. They had more capital. They knew, they had been trading a while, but I was green. I was fresh. And that year I learned a lot of lessons. It was super fun. Looking back, it was a very emotionally driven trading. But that was kind of my first intro, and I was really just trading kind of options at that point, and penny stocks, really looking for low float rippers. And at that point I was trading all day as much as I could. I worked from home, so that was, I was able to do that. But yeah, that was kind of where it started. It was an interesting kind of first year.
Were penny stocks options, was that successful right out of the gate, or was that just kind of learning the ropes to how the market moved? And like you said, those momentum stocks, I started with momentum myself, and that was it's definitely a good foray sort of into the markets. It's not what I trade anymore, but particularly, it's difficult, especially for those people that penny stocks can be a roller coaster. Was that something that you found some success in early on, or did you kind of move from there and on other things?
I wouldn't say that I found real success. I would say that first year was more learning what not to do, learning a lot of lessons of, okay, if you're going to trade these things, these are the things you're going to have to look out for. For example, on penny stocks, if I'm going to trade them pre-market, I almost need to think of pre-market as one session and market open as a second session, because if I hold a position, I'm doing well at pre-market, sometimes new buyers and sellers come into the market when market opens, it'll just dump. And, so there's this price discovery on the open. And so things like I had to learn that, through losing money. I'd be up green all pre-market, and then, it dumps on the open. And then same thing with options. It's like, okay, if I'm going to trade options, how far out am I going? Do I go a month? Do I go, 2 months? How do I pick what stocks to do? And learning, spreads can sometimes crush you. So it was definitely, there wasn't a ton of, it was very boom and bust from a P&L standpoint.
Yeah.
I would lose a ton of money. And like I said, it was very emotionally driven too. So, the losers would make me want to revenge trade. The winners would make me feel like I'm going to make so much money and I'm never going to have another loss. And so that's kind of what that year was. I did have, one trade that I kind of tied in my ability to do fundamental analysis to it. I knew this company that, I won't say the company, but I knew this company. I knew they weren't very good. I really was bearish on it. This was coming out of COVID. A lot of companies had done well. And I basically took what they'd call like a lotto on it, and a super far out of the money option. They had earnings. I was basically sizing the position for zero. I was willing to lose it all. And they ended up dropping like 45% on overnight on the earnings. And the position went 6,000%. I only risked like $30 on the trade, but it went to a couple $1,000s overnight. That was that, but it's like, that was very boom and bust, because now it's like, I would never take that trade to begin with, or with any size. And, and same thing to the downside. I remember I had this NVIDIA trade where I was like, oh, I'm super bullish on NVIDIA today, or whatever it was. And I took this big options position on it. And I just remember it going down. And I was like, it was one of those classic, oh, it'll come back. Oh, it'll come back. And it just kept dipping all day. I think I took a nap, and I'm like, maybe I'll wake up from the nap and it'll be up and it'll be green. No, I woke up from the nap. It was completely just a zero position. And so there was no structure to kind of the trading at that point, but it was a great time to learn. I also didn't have a ton of capital either, so there was limited downside risk.
Sure.
But yeah.
Yeah. No, I've had those trades too, where I'll think, oh yeah, it's going to dip and it'll come back. And then I'll find myself averaging down. Do you ever try that? Or did you try that early on? If you're down on your position and you're like, okay, I'll just average down, and then, it doesn't have to go back up as far to, get me back in profit. Do you find that helpful at all?
So I would say, like, back then, yeah, I mean, I made all the mistakes possible, literally. Especially revenge trade, double my size to make back losses, averaging down in losers, cutting winners short. I mean, all the same things that most traders kind of struggle with. But that first year specifically, it's like no one was really coaching me. It was basically in this Discord, it was guys talking, oh, this looks good. Oh, this looks good. Oh, I just slapped this much of this, stock or option. And I really had to figure out my own kind of way of, if I was going to trade pennies, what am I looking for in the morning? I'm looking for some news that seems material. I'm making sure it's low float. I'm looking at prior charts. So I really had to figure out my own kind of way in each of those areas. And even from that, it's become more sophisticated, but it's still a learning process. And it takes years and years and years. But no, I definitely made all those mistakes.
Yeah. Yeah. What would you say you've learned from your mistakes? Like, what were some of the bigger mistakes that you've made that you look at now and you can pinpoint and say, okay, I did that 3 months ago, 6 months ago, maybe a year ago, and say, yeah, it breaks my rules. Like, do you have rules for yourself? Do you keep
For
those?
sure.
Or
Oh,
do you
for sure.
are you still at the place where it's like, okay, that's my rule, but YOLO, baby?
No, I mean, I don't really break my rules per se. I'm a very disciplined person, especially when it comes to like I did bodybuilding for a number of years, and that's a very disciplined sport. And I've learned the advantages to kind of that. I mean, I will say I'm not immune to the feelings and the emotions of wanting to break my rules. But it hasn't happened very much. Like maybe I'll take a loss or another loss on something, and then I'll set up a rule for it, and then I'll typically like follow it. Maybe it's a stock that, hey, it's really hard to manage risk on, like Tesla, and then I'll just say, look, I've learned my lesson on that. Took a couple big losses on it this year. I'm just not going to trade that anymore until maybe at some point I reevaluate and then decide, okay, I'll take that rule away. So I'm constantly adjusting kind of the rules that I have and the ones that I'll go to. And there's some things where I'll lose on. A lot of my losses are what like lead to these new rules and lessons and stuff. And so, sometimes I won't put a rule around something. It'll take me a couple times to lose that way for me to realize, maybe I should have some parameters around that. And that's part of the discovery process. Like it's never going to be perfect. And you kind of have to weigh, like, is this worth putting a rule around or not? Like, how often is this crushing me? Or is it me, or is it just the probabilities? So yeah, that's kind of what I'd say about that.
Yeah, and you touched on the bodybuilding aspect, and that definitely helps with the disciplinary mindset. Obviously, that you're doing something with your body, but it's also mental. It's also psychological. So how important is the psychological game in trading? I recently read Trading in the Zone by Mark Douglas, and really it seems that so much of our mindset, not just the execution of getting in and out of a trade, but what is it like to, okay, you're on tilt today, you're actually in a drawdown. How do you pick yourself up psychologically? And again, how important is the psychological game of trading?
Oh man, I mean, you hit it on the nail right there. Like I think it's huge. And I could honestly talk about the psychology piece for forever, because I think that's the hardest thing, and that's what I'm continuing to get better and better at. There's things around technical analysis that, okay, I need to improve on this, or I need to watch out for this more, but it really is. And it's one of those things too where I think you don't realize how much you might be improving until you look back at kind of your old self. But like looking back at that first year, it was like clearly everything was super emotional, and now I still deal with kind of the emotional aspects of it. I think it's just, do I act on them or not? I think any person who trades for a long time, it's like, I don't think they become immune to those emotions. I think they just become better at not acting on them. And one example is for sure just like even in trades, wanting to interfere with them. That's where I think before I enter a trade, I have to have a clear kind of plan of what I'm going to do. This is where my stop loss is, period. This is where I'm taking, partials, or this is where I'm taking profit. Because once I'm in the trade, if I don't have that plan, I'm going to start changing the plan in my head. Oh, well, maybe my stop could be down here, or maybe I'll take it off a little early. And like those things are just as detrimental to, especially if you're watching the 1 minute chart or lower time frames and you have a higher time frame thesis. Like, so that to me has been one of the harder things to manage, on top of just making sure, this year and the last year was really about kind of defining what my trading system is, what is my approach, what is the criteria that I'm taking, and then trying to stick to that. Because I think the challenging part is when you go through a losing streak, or you have a couple trades in a row where they're losses, you start to question like your strategy. Maybe I need to do something different. Maybe swing trading would be easier, or maybe futures would be better, or maybe I'd make more money if I was on a prop firm, or and really the ultimate thing is, it comes back to like, you're the issue. Like I'm the issue is why I'm not it's, it's very rarely some kind of technical analysis or break in your system, assuming you've done the work to understand like that your strategy is profitable and you have a decent risk reward kind of in your setups.
Yeah, yeah. And you don't have to go into all the detail if you don't want to, but if you could distill some of like the current strategy that you employ on your intraday day trading right now, like what are things that you like? What are things that you look for? You said you started in penny stocks. I believe you're doing more like large caps, right? That's what you're kind of trading on a daily basis. But what are some of your strategic ideas that you have, or theses?
Yeah.
Yeah, that you have in your trading right now?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So right now I'm basically trading, weekly options on kind of the large cap tech stocks. So, we got basically Tesla, Nvidia, AMD, Apple, Google, Microsoft, Meta, all the way down to the large cap tech stocks, ones that have tight spreads. And I'm trading them on the New York Open, typically trading momentum. And the strategy that I use is basically the break and retest strategy. So that could be previous, days, highs and lows. It could be 4-hour pivots, 1-hour pivots, or just key levels that kind of I've marked out. But typically looking to take 1 to 2 trades a day. If I take one loser, I'm pretty much done for the day. If I take, one break even trade, I might take another one. One winner, I'm also off. I will take 2. Like if I take a loser and it's really because of like let's say I'm looking for a previous day high break and retest, and we break above, we retest, and I take it, and then we fail below the level and I get stopped out, but then we reclaim even stronger. To me, that's like a failed attempt to go lower, and then the reclaim is actually more convincing, and on the 84% rule, there's a 84% rule where if it reclaims that level 84% of the time, it's probably going to go higher from there. And so that will be a situation where I will re-enter those trades, assuming that the loss that I took wasn't outsized by any means or anything like that. Those, I'm not technically going to probably go look for another trade. That's just part of my discipline, especially trying to, increase my hit rate in terms of trades that I'm taking. I would say you will use the opening range break sometimes, the 5-minute opening range break. And I'm typically looking for anywhere from kind of 2R to 3R kind of on my trades. That's pretty much the system. And then coming into the day, so pre-market, I'm doing daily chart analysis. So, and 4-hour, analysis. I'm looking for flat top breaks or, bull flags or, anything that maybe looks good on the higher time frames coming into market open, that then I'll be looking for a setup on the intraday. I'm not really looking, I don't do a whole bunch of reversals. So I'm not, since I'm momentum, I'm not looking for something that's really selling off and then trying to time the bottom and come back up. And then I'm also not really holding overnight, just because it's harder for me to manage risk on options. With things being able to gap up 2-3% kind of overnight, I can't really control my risk. And I'm a very OCD about controlling risk. And so at this point in my journey, it's not really something that I'm doing. But I do look at down the road, there just being different, different types of strategies that I can add to my toolkit. I look at it as like a quiver of, different arrows that I can employ. And I was talking to someone about this analogy earlier. It's like I'm focused on one strategy right now to get really good and become an expert at and develop that edge and fine tune that edge. There's no need. Like if someone gives me, I like to use the bodybuilding analogy. If someone gives me a workout plan and I don't even know how to work out, like I need to just stick to that plan and try to learn how to work out, follow that plan. It's not the plan that matters. It's me learning how to work out. Once I've figured out how to work out, then I can start, years down the road, I can do whatever, because I know how to work out. But if I don't know how to work out, I need, to follow kind of one thing. And so that's kind of where I'm at strategy wise. And I've been dialed in on that for at least kind of 9 months now. So really not even that long. Before I would still go back and forth, like, should I, focus on pennies, and it's usually everyone wants to strategy hop all the time when they're not, profitable at first. But it's like the pros of one thing are usually the cons of another, and the cons of one thing are usually the pros of the other, whether it's a strategy or an instrument that you're trading. And so I think ultimately you're going to realize like there's no instrument or strategy that's perfect, that doesn't have cons. You're just going to have to figure out what can you get used to, and what fits kind of your style and how you want to go about it.
Yeah, most definitely. Trading is definitely trying to figure out a strategy that fits and adopts to your personality type. That's definitely a true statement. In regards to your strategy, so you're looking at opening, you're looking at highs, lows, pre-market highs, pre-market lows. Do you also use indicators? Do you use, say, MACD or EMAs? What kind of indicators are you using or utilizing?
Yeah, so like I was saying, I'll mark out key levels, like across charts with like shaded areas, so that I know like, okay, this was a prior 4-hour pivot or a key level on the higher time frame, maybe a daily high or weekly high or something like that. And so those are on my chart on a daily basis. But then on the, and then I'll also mark out, those other pre-market levels and stuff. But really, I'll use VWAP, and I'll use the 9 EMA and the 21 EMA, and typically on the intraday.
Nice. Yep. That's very similar to what I use as well. That's great. Do you also, so there's so many different people that you can follow in the trading community and the trading world. Some, I believe, are great to follow. Some are more on the guru side, buy my course kind of thing. Are there various people that you like in various communities that you follow? And in conjunction with that question, do you read or listen to audiobooks about trading? Because there's so much information that has been disseminated over the course of so many years with books and things of that nature. Maybe we can explore a little bit of that topic.
Yeah, that's a good one. So I think, when I started, I definitely watched all the people, and I really did try to soak up as much of what are the different strategies that are out there, from a TJR to a, J Dubs who trades kind of break and retest like myself. Typically now I follow guys that trade the same strategy as me. So, I don't follow many ICT guys unless it's just for entertainment or something on Instagram. But, J Dubs and Scarface trades, they trade the same kind of break and retest strategy. And then as well, kind of Vincent Desiano, he also trades the break and retest. So those are guys that I follow. But then definitely, like, I'll watch interviews of, verified traders and stuff, really just to get their insights around more of the psychology stuff and just the long-term journey of it. I'm a real big fan of kind of Lance B at Trillium and what he's doing in the space. And, that I think just for me, it's more of just, a lot of times when I'm discouraged or something, listening to those guys will really help me kind of, okay, just recenter, refocus, and keep on chugging on. I do think you reach this point where tidbits here and there will be helpful to kind of your psyche or maybe your strategy. Like I was watching the Strong Trader talk about his pullback to VWAP strategy yesterday, and there's something that I think I could incorporate into mine to kind of help. But I'm not, necessarily switching to his strategy. It's just like, oh, that's an interesting way to think about it. Or, he trades that strategy all the time. So, maybe I could, learn something from it. But really it's just more now knowing I have to, keep doing the reps. That no new YouTube video is going to just make it click. No one indicator, no perfect strategy. It's just kind of showing up, doing the reps. But definitely from an entertainment standpoint and an education standpoint, those are the guys that I kind of trust. At the same time, like I know, especially when I see him take big losses, like I've seen days where Desi goes on tilt and he blows a bunch of money, and I'm like, all right, now I know you're real deal. Like there's guys out there where your hit, your win rate's 100%, 85%. You never show any. It's like it's hard for me to trust those guys because I know that's not the reality of the journey. But doesn't mean they don't somewhat know what they're doing.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. There is something probably to be gleaned even from the quote unquote gurus. But like you say, it is more human to actually go, okay, guys, here you go. Here's what I think. Here's my thesis. But today I failed. Like you said,
Yeah.
Vincent, I've seen him blow up before. And actually, I learned the 5 minute and 15 minute open break or the orb from
Yeah.
Scarface, actually. And I think
Yep.
Scarface is Saturday. Usually he has his sort of weekly thoughts and review what's
Mhm.
coming out. I like the way he reads the charts and the way
Same.
that he'll look at maybe what we have coming up for the week. So yeah, there's a lot to be gleaned from various people across the spectrum of traders of today. And then also I read the Market Wizards books. I think those books are also invaluable to understanding not just today's world of trading, but also even the past and what people have gone through. What do they do when they go on 3 months of tilt or a
Mhm.
drawdown that they're like, whoa, should I even be trading? Because the funny thing about trading is we do it alone. It's in one sense, it's completely subjective. The market is neutral. We show up and we execute and we get in and out of orders. And it can just be a lonely kind of one man band kind of thing. But when you get these people that also are in the mix of trading and you can watch and you can kind of see, oh, wow, yeah, they have drawdowns too. Like they have problems of their own and they're trying to work through their own strategy and not break their own rules and all of that. I do find it to be very helpful to just see that across the board. And like you said, there's no magic soup, there's no magic sauce, there's nothing you can take. It's like going in the gym and being like, I can just take this magic pill and then I'll be buff and ripped. And it's like, well, yeah, you
Right.
you can take stuff for sure, but unless you go out and you do the reps daily yourself, sorry, it's not. There is no magic formula. You got to put in the work. And with
Right.
trading specifically, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work to get in and look at what the pre-market levels are, especially you trade the New York Open. Well, you need to know what kind of happened in the pre-market to actually
Mhm.
see where we might be headed to, or if it's bullish or bearish. There's all these various levels that we have to pay attention to. So there's a lot of extracurricular homework before you ever sit down and hit the button to buy or sell.
Yeah, no, and it's a good point. I mean, the what I've noticed is by doing those pre-market preps, especially with like Desi, like he's helped with the technical analysis piece, knowing what to look for, just hearing the repetition of, you just start to think how the market works and what might happen. And what I've found is like you can get fluent in that, but there is still this major disconnect between knowing the technical analysis and being able to perform as a trader. And like that to me is the same thing, because I think bodybuilding is super mental, trading super mental, and that's where you're only going to get those experiences if you do it. And I think it's interesting because a lot of people, obviously, the statistics, like not many people are profitable and not many people continue doing this. And the the challenging thing is the mindset. It's like, why do you want to keep showing up every single day when you keep getting your face smashed in all the time? And it's like, because that's the only way you learn. Like that's literally the only way that I've learned to stop front running trades ideas that I think are going to happen is by front running trade ideas that I think are going to happen and getting smashed. And so it's like, to me, once I'm getting better and better at it, but it's like, once I really do start looking at the losses that I'm taking as lessons and also as data points to show myself, okay, I had this idea, and this didn't work, and so maybe I refine that for later. And so it really is just this continual process, and you hear people talk about it all the time. It's like it is a marathon, not a sprint, but it's literally showing up every single day, and you're only going to get that experience by managing risk enough to be there long enough to see that hockey stick in your P&L. If you don't get risk management down early, you're not going to make it to the end to be able to see that success, because you're not going to have a long enough time to get the reps in to learn to become profitable. And so that's really kind of been the big thing for me, is just understanding that it's not about 1 year, it's not about 2 years, it's not even really about 3 years. It's about getting all these reps to eventually see that hockey stick in your P&L.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, the common denominator in trading is risk management. And I have now read, as many books as I've read now in the past year from various traders, people that used to trade on the Chicago floor physically, like they're on the floor, people that trade, like us on computers by ourselves and by our lonesomes. It really is about that risk management. And if you can get that down, it seems that the windows and doors of opportunity can be there for you, in the future, but you have to actually get to that point for sure.
Yeah.
One of the things that I've noticed about trading is that trading itself is also parallel to so many things in life that I don't know about you, Zach, but I talk in Tradenese now. So like if I'm
Mhm.
having like a good day or something, I'm like, man, today's a green day. And I don't even mean P&L. I just mean
Right.
like in life, I'm starting to actually say things and think of things like, yeah, the trajectory of my life is, right now I'm kind of on a bull run. It was bearish about 3 years
Right.
ago. I'm not even talking money sometimes
Right.
though. But
It's
like,
just a little pullback, just a little pullback, nothing
oh,
crazy.
that's right. That's right. I was even talking to a guy I was talking to the other day that I work with at the prop firm, and he was saying because he uses Fibonacci all the
Yeah.
time, he'll be driving. He lives in California, San Francisco. He'll be driving. He'll see a mountain, and he starts seeing the Fibonacci levels when he looks up at the
That's
mountain
funny.
because he literally thinks in trade
Yeah.
now. But it shows up. My wife trades. My younger son, he does stuff in the sim, and it's like it kind of just shows up in life now in the language of how you talk, of how you think. Have you noticed this as well?
I mean, I dream about it. I'll have dreams and I'm where's my stop loss and like all these things. But no, I definitely do. I definitely think I've always thought in terms of kind of risk reward in life and in my job and to like inspect the expected value of something. I think there's a concept where people talk about it, the the value of something isn't the same for every person. This is kind of a tangent, but like, some people who feel like, oh, spending money on vacation, like it's a waste of time, but for someone else that might not be. And so like, I'm always thinking in the markets and probably too much. So, my wife definitely hears all about my trades on a regular basis. And, yeah, it's interesting the language piece too, because I don't even know if my wife understands me half the time, the things that I'm saying. Like I'm using words like liquidity sweep and all these things, break a structure, and it's like, yeah, I don't even. But it is cool to learn this. And to your point about just like the community aspect, like that's a challenging part, especially when you're struggling, or don't know what to do, don't know who to ask someone. Like it's been great to kind of have a community, meet more people who trade and not feel as isolated, because it is a lonely kind of journey. And so that's where, it's been great to hear that you're trading and stuff. And, I'm along for your journey as well as you are for mine. And just, it's so much more helpful when you can get that quick feedback or, hey, yeah, I've been there too, or this is what I've done. Maybe try this, rather than just, wondering what to do and how to do it. So yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, I really don't, especially the older I'm getting in life, the more I don't even view life as a zero-sum game for really anything, specifically trading. So when I hear somebody's doing really great or has a really great green day, I
Right.
genuinely don't flare up with envy at all. I literally am like, all right, good job. Like I know how hard this is, right? Like
Yeah.
and it's not a zero-sum game. So the fact that so many of us are on the same journey, trying to just learn the strategies that we're employing for ourselves, trading our personalities, and really just doing better every day as we come to the markets. For
Mhm.
me, I look at it, it's not a team effort because we're not doing it as a team, but we are doing the same function. We're doing the same thing individually, but then corporately or community wise, we come together to discuss. And so if somebody has a really bad day, it's like, oh man, I feel bad for that person.
Yeah.
Bummer for you. If you have a great green day, I'm really excited. My wife, she'll be like, hey, I had a green day today. I had a red day. So it's like, all right, well, I wish I had a green day. But again, trading, even to me, trading, it's not a zero sum game. There's so
No.
much, there's so much out there to get. I don't want to say we all can get it, because like you said, trading is very difficult. Not everyone's going to stick around. Most people quit too early with trading, after
Mhm.
their first year. I think I've read the statistics are like 6 months to about a year. People
Yeah.
go, okay, I'm just in a drawdown all the time. I can't do this. And then they walk away from it. Whereas the people that are successful in it typically have to give it anywhere from typically 2 to even about 5 years of time.
Yeah.
I've literally heard this from people, and I've read it in the books. People are taking a lot longer to actually get good. Most people don't want to do that though, right? I mean, most
No.
people don't want to go to the gym and actually put in that work and just actually say, okay, to lose the weight or to get the muscles or to do whatever, I've got to actually eat right. I can't just go to the gym and expect to just look great. I've got to actually know what's going in my diet. There's so many variables involved, right?
Yeah, and I think one thing is like that's why I've realized even more and more, just as I've improved, it's like you can't trade the P&L. Like if you're constantly attached to what your P&L is, whether you're green or you're red, like that's a bad representation of if you're making progress or not. If you passed on a setup that you might have taken 6 months ago because it's not in your system, like dude, great, you're becoming a better trader. If you're managing risk better than you did 6 months ago, like then you're improving, even whether the P&L shows it or not. And you bring up an interesting, and I love the fact that the markets and trading is not a zero. It doesn't. You don't need to lose for me to win. I mean, that's what's happening all the time in the market. Someone's losing so that I can win. But
True.
the coolest thing that I think about with trading is like just the opportunity that it produces and the scalability. It's one of the only, I'm going to call it, professions that you can make more money without having to spend more time. So
Mhm.
the same trade that I'm taking to make $100 can make me $1,000, $10,000. And so it's not about the money, it's about the trading. It's about becoming proficient at the skill, and then eventually kind of the money will come. But nailing the system is the really hard part. Not showing up and because once you get a decent idea of kind of technical analysis, it's really easy to just be like, oh, this looks like it's going to do this, I'm going to take this trade. And it's like narrowing it down to only taking the things that you've identified as your bread and butter setup is one of the harder parts mentally, especially when you take an L or and so that's the part that's fascinating to me, is just trying to, like you said, improve, be better as a person, and I see it outside the charts too. If I'm willy-nilly in my life and don't have discipline in the gym, in the kitchen, I'm sporadic, emotional, I'm probably not going to do well at trading. And so all these areas of my life had to be very kind of disciplined and lined up. And some days, when things are too crazy in real life, I have to realize that that's going to have an impact on how I trade, and know that this is probably a day where I shouldn't sit down at the charts.
Yeah, that is a common thought too among people. It's like if you're sick, if a relative passes, if you're just if you didn't get enough sleep, sometimes it's
Mhm.
really gauging yourself and your own emotions and where you're at mentally when you come into the markets and say, should I take a trade? Am I really able to today to sit here and execute a trade and not go tilt or not be overly emotional because of maybe what's going on in my life? I think that's definitely some sage advice for sure. What would you say to, say, a new trader coming into the market, somebody that is maybe even just an aspiring person who may listen to this interview or other interviews like these where people are talking about their trading journeys and they're going, hey, this sounds really interesting. I think I might want to try this.
Yeah.
What would be some of the things you would tell that person up front, knowing what you know now, a couple years into the game, knowing that you, with your experience level,
Yeah.
what would you tell somebody who's like, I think I want to give this a go? What would you tell them, and maybe what pitfalls should they look out for initially when they start trading?
Yeah. So, I mean, I like the approach that I kind of took. It's soak up as much information from as many sources as you can. Get knowledgeable about the markets, about what this whole trading craft is. And back when I started, there really wasn't prop firms or anything like that. There was sim, and so I do recommend people doing some type of kind of lower risk trading, whether that be sim trading or even just kind of different prop firms, to be able to get a little bit of the emotional impact from trading, because I do think that's one of the harder pieces. But being able to kind of test yourself and see how you do in the markets. And to your point earlier, it's like I would try to find some other people who are interested as well, and hopefully they really have a passion for the market, so they can kind of do it a long time. And yeah, I would definitely say that don't have high expectations in the first couple years. I would say if you are going to do live capital, definitely only trade with stuff that you're willing to lose, because there's a high probability that you're probably going to lose it. And if you're one of the chosen ones and just go have a straight P&L from the beginning, then that's good for you. But no, I think, and it's have patience with yourself. I think have patience with yourself. And if you really love this, I look at my bad days where, I'll lose, and, I'll just feel like, man, this is tough. And I realized, like, I wouldn't quit even if I lost all my money. Like, I wouldn't, like I love this game. And so, but to your point, really study up on risk management, what that means, and the best ways to kind of approach that. Because if you get that piece down first, the making money will come as you refine your edge and stuff. I think too many people, I know I'm not going to name names, but they'll think, oh, if this goes to this, then I'm going to make this. And that's a great, way to think, but that's dreaming. I'm always more focused on what am I going to lose if I'm wrong? And making sure that that's kind of the first thought. But yeah, that's what I would say. But no, definitely, I do think the prop thing's interesting. Like, the way that I think that's been super beneficial is that it can allow people to come into the markets with limited risk capital and be able to build significant capital and skill to then be able to go and start their own live account. I think the long-term journey is being able to go to where you have enough capital and you have the skill to be able to do it on your own. But I know plenty of people who have, scaled very well on props, still trade props as professional. But there's going to be pros and cons to kind of all of those things, some of the drawdown rules. And so really it's soak up as much information as you can. And if you really want to do this, it's definitely possible. And don't compare yourself to other people either. I think that's a big one that knocks people out of the game really easy. It's, oh, well, I'm not making this, or, and really just accept that it's your own journey. And if you don't make it as, far as you want, that's okay. As long as you enjoy it at the end of the day, like that's where, I think you're going to have the most success. That's where you're going to be able to keep showing up to get that experience.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I would concur too. The sim, especially if you've never traded before, starting off in just a sim where you are literally not going to lose anything. You are just getting a feel for the markets. You're getting a feel for the charts and how a stock can move and move against you quickly at times. I think that is extremely important. And like you said, prop firms, I'm obviously biased towards Trade the Pool. I work with Trade the Pool, but there's a lot of prop firms out there, and you are risking. You're not really risking anything, because what you're doing is you're buying an evaluation to essentially try to pass that and then get funded. And then you're risking the prop firm's capital, which I find to be extremely helpful, because early on in your trading journey, you're going to blow through a lot of your evaluations. So if you spend, say, $100 per evaluation, as opposed to, okay, you've got 25K or you got 50K of your own dollars, you could come to the markets today. You could put it in a Webull account or whatever account you want to. You can trade with that. But if you've never traded before, you're going to probably, unless you're a purple squirrel, like Zach says, you're probably going to blow a lot of that. Whereas opposed to, hey, you could try, a couple of evaluations, spend a few $100 and you're not really risking thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars up front. You're just saying, hey, I'm willing to essentially fund my education to try
Right.
and get and become a good trader along the way. So I find them to be extremely helpful.
Yeah, two things I'll say, and this is totally, this has nothing to do with your ability to read technical analysis. It has nothing to do with your ability, even your psychology, or the things that I think are the hard part about trading. It's like sometimes you'll have like execution issues. I literally had this issue today, right? Let's say you're trading penny stocks pre-market. Well, you can only really use limit orders. And so you're trying to change the limit order, and it keeps dropping, and and you just lose because your execution is off. It literally happened to me today when I was trading options. I went to purchase some options, and since I use market orders, I really only try to find options that have tight spreads, penny spreads or nickel spreads, so that the bid and ask is really tight, and I'm not losing a lot in just by entering my position. And I took a position today on Google long, and when I entered the position, literally the spread was so wide that I was already down my stop loss. And so at that point, I'm like, I have to take the trade off, because that's just something that it happens from time to time. That's just the trading game. Or you catch a Trump candle that just liquidates your whole portfolio. Like,
Yeah.
Sometimes these things happen, and that figuring that stuff out risk free, not on your own capital, is better. Risk your own capital when you have a legit strategy, or you think you do, and you want to test your psychology, those types of things. The second thing I'll say, and it's one helpful tip, I only started doing this like a couple months ago because there was a code for one of the options prop firms super cheap, and so I decided to buy some on 50% off. And so the past call it week, I've had a couple losers, and those are days where I'm like frustrated, but I'm not going to go on tilt. So what do? I just go on the prop firm and start YOLO and stuff. This is bad advice. Like, but for me, it's like enjoyable. It's fun. Like, I know I'm not risking anything, and I get to just, still mess around. Cause I'm a kid. I love to play, in the markets, but when it comes to like, is this going to be good for my trading and my system? Like, okay, probably not. So we're not going to go tilt on there, but I will do it elsewhere. But anyways,
no,
that's not good advice.
I understand that. There's definitely the draw to say, hey, this is a prop firm evaluation. If I lose $400 or $500 in the next 5 minutes, well, it's digital dollars and it's virtual and it's not real. If I know I'm actually playing it that way, if it really is sort of that YOLO kind of trade, I know exactly what you mean, because I've done it before. Whereas, hey, if it was a real $400 or $500, $1,000, it's like, oh gosh, I don't want to lose that. I'm not gonna risk that. It can teach you some bad habits, but at the same time, and I know you do this, and I do it myself, I overall take I take most trades pretty darn serious, like as if it really is real dollars, because once you pass evaluation, then you are looking at real dollars. And the question is how much. They say a lot of people that I think the drawdown or the drawback with prop firms, and even just strictly staying in the sim for too long, is potentially you get used to just kind of willy-nilly, haphazardly buying, selling. Okay, it doesn't really matter. Well, when it does matter, eventually you're training and teaching yourself bad habits.
For sure.
But I totally know what you mean.
And the funny thing is, like, I say that I go on there and I tilt, but I don't. I can't. Like, I literally can't. I'll try to size up and try to, and I just don't. So it's more just, a way for me to take some more trades in the day and have some fun and maybe make some money. But I know I'm not really risking anything
exactly
that much. So
exactly. Okay. Let me end with this question. This is what I usually ask at the end of interviews. How do you define success in life? Or put it a little different, what is success in life to you, Zach?
Oh, it's a great question. And I'll probably just steal this from Warren Buffett. But to me, it's really, and Jesse's doing a great job of this. If you don't know this, it's how many loved ones around you that you have like later in life. I think to me, being late in life and not having people around you to love you, being alone, like that to me is a big one. And so, my relationships, really, I would say having great relationships, strong faith, those things to me are are the biggest successes in life. That's where I've seen the most success come from, is relationships and my faith in Christ. And it certainly hasn't been anything, my job or all these things, those kind of can be taken away, and they have in the past, and those don't really mean anything. And then probably just, a long, healthy life, to me, those are the things that matters. I can joke around and say a bunch of other things, but that's not the truth.
Beautiful. Well, man, I loved having you on here. I loved interviewing you today, and we should do it again soon. We should do it
for sure.
Down the road.
I could talk trading for hours. So
I know. Let's do it again soon. This has been very enjoyable. Thank you so much.
Appreciate you having me.
Yep.